Taro worked hard every day, cutting wood in the nearby forest and selling it in the village market. He always brought home small gifts: dried fish for his mother, silk ribbons for Mina. His mother often smiled and said, "A good son brings warmth to both his wife and his mother." In the evenings, they would share simple meals: miso soup, rice, and laughter. Mina listened politely to his mother's old tales, though sometimes her smile seemed forced. Still, Taro believed happiness was simple: food, family, and love. But as the seasons changed, small cracks began to form. His mother grew weaker, needing more care, while Mina grew restless, spending long hours staring out the window. Taro thought it was just the quiet village life making her bored. He didn't see the storm of jealousy building behind her calm eyes, a storm that would soon test his soul. At first, Taro thought it was just a misunderstanding, two women learning to share the same space. He tried harder, splitting his time between them. He gathered flowers for Mina, and warm tea for his mother. But no matter how kind he was, the distance between the two women grew. Mina started avoiding the old woman, taking her meals in silence. The once cheerful mornings turned quiet. When Taro left for work, the house felt colder. His mother would sigh softly and say, "She does not see my heart." In the village, people began to notice. "Your wife is young," an old man said to Taro. "Young hearts are easily clouded by pride." Taro only smiled weakly, hoping love would mend what was breaking. One night, as rain tapped on the roof, Mina finally said what had been growing inside her for months. "I cannot live like this, Taro. Every day, your mother looks at me as if I am unworthy. You must choose, her or me." The words pierced through him like a blade. Taro stared at the woman he loved, his heart trembling between duty and desire. In the flickering firelight, he whispered, "Please do not ask me to choose." But deep inside he knew, the storm had already begun. When morning came, the sun rose pale and uncertain, like it too, feared what the day would bring. Taro sat by the doorway, his hands trembling as he sharpened his axe, not for work, but to calm the storm inside him. His mother came out quietly, leaning on her walking stick. "You didn't sleep," she said. He forced a smile. "Just thinking." She looked at him for a long moment. A man's heart cannot serve two masters, love and guilt. One will always destroy the other. He wanted to speak, to tell her everything, but the words stuck in his throat. Later that day, Mina packed a small bag. "I will go," she said, "since you cannot choose." Taro grabbed her arm, desperate. "Don't leave. Please. I'll fix this." She turned away. "You can't fix it unless she's gone." Her words echoed in his mind for hours after she left the room. Gone. That evening, as he watched his mother mend an old blanket by the fire, he could barely breathe. Her hands shook, but her face was calm, the same face that had smiled through every hardship, every hunger, every lonely winter. She noticed his silence and smiled faintly. "What troubles you, my son?" He looked into her eyes and saw nothing but love. That made it worse. "Mina," he began, but his voice cracked. "She wants peace, doesn't she?" The old woman said gently. "Then take me somewhere quiet, far from this house. I am tired." Taro's heart shattered. She knew. And yet, even knowing, she protected him from guilt. That night, as the wind howled through the trees, Taro made his choice. He would take his mother to the mountains, not because he stopped loving her, but because he was too weak to stand between two loves tearing him apart. As the first snow began to fall, he whispered to the sleeping house, "Forgive me, mother." Taro buried his face in his hands, his cries echoing through the cold mountain air. The shame was unbearable. "I don't deserve your love," he whispered. "I don't deserve to be your son." His mother placed her frail hand on his shoulder. "No one is born perfect, Taro. But a good man knows when to stop walking the wrong path." Her words cut through the fog in his mind. The axe he had hidden behind a rock now seemed heavier than the mountain itself. He pushed it aside, trembling. "I can't do it," he said, his voice breaking. "I won't." The old woman nodded slowly. "Then take me home, my son. We'll face whatever comes, together." He lifted her again, this time not out of duty, but out of love. On the way down, the wind seemed softer, as if the mountain itself had forgiven him. When they reached the bottom, Mina was waiting by the gate. Her expression hardened as she saw his mother still alive. "You couldn't do it," she hissed. "You chose her over me." Taro looked at her, his face calm for the first time in weeks. "I chose what was right." Mina's anger flared. "You'll regret this. You'll lose me." He nodded sadly. "Then go." Without another word, she turned and walked away, her footsteps fading into the distance. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Taro sat beside his mother by the fire. He held her hands tightly, whispering, "I almost became a murderer because of love. But it was your love that saved me." His mother smiled, eyes glistening in the firelight. "Love can blind a man, my son. But a mother's love will always guide him home." And in that moment, Taro finally understood. True love is not about choosing between two hearts, but about choosing what is pure within one's own. Taro sat beside the fire that night, staring into the glowing embers. The silence that once felt heavy now felt clean, almost gentle. He could hear his mother's slow breathing from the other side of the room, a sound that reminded him of home, of safety, of all he had almost destroyed. Outside, the wind howled softly through the pines, carrying away the echoes of Mina's voice. He knew she would not return, and deep down, he understood that some losses were blessings in disguise. His mother spoke quietly, her eyes fixed on the fire. "The world tests our hearts in cruel ways. But when kindness survives those tests, it becomes stronger." Taro nodded, tears welling up again. "I was blind, mother. I thought love meant obedience. But love without compassion is just selfishness." She smiled faintly, her wrinkles deepening in the firelight. "You have learned, my son. That is enough." That night, for the first time in many months, Taro slept without nightmares. In his dreams, the mountain was no longer a place of death. It was a place of forgiveness, where cherry blossoms bloomed even after the frost. When dawn came, the sky was painted in gold. Taro went outside, breathed in the cool morning air, and whispered, "I will never forget this lesson." And as the sun rose behind the hills, he understood that sometimes redemption doesn't come from great deeds or grand apologies. It comes from one simple act of choosing love over fear. Years rolled by, each season painting the village in new shades of life and memory. Taro grew older, his hair turning silver like the mist that lingered over the mountains each morning. Yet his eyes remained warm, the same eyes that had once wept with guilt, now calm with understanding. He spent his days working in the forest, chopping wood and sharing what little he earned with those who had less. Whenever an old villager fell sick, Taro brought food. When a young boy struggled to carry firewood, Taro helped him without being asked. People began calling him Taro the Gentle. But when someone asked why he was always so kind, his answer was simple. "Because once I forgot what kindness was, and nearly lost everything." He kept his mother's words close to his heart. Kindness is heavier than gold but lighter to carry. Each spring, when cherry blossoms bloomed on the mountain, Taro climbed the same path where he had once carried his mother. He would sit beneath the trees, close his eyes, and listen to the wind. He could almost hear her voice again, soft and loving. "My son, be careful on the path." In those quiet moments, he didn't feel regret, only peace. He understood now that life tests every heart with choices, but it is love and mercy that define who we truly are. As the years passed, Taro's story spread through the valley, told by travelers, mothers, and elders around the fire. Some spoke of the cruel wife, others spoke of the devoted son. But those who listened closely understood, it wasn't just a story about family. It was a story about the strength it takes to choose compassion when the world demands cruelty. And in the hearts of those who heard it, the mountain of forgiveness lived on. Years later, when Taro's hair had turned as white as the mountain snow, he spent his afternoons beneath the same cherry trees that had once witnessed his greatest sin and his greatest redemption. Children from the village would gather around him, their curious faces glowing in the soft light of sunset. He would smile and begin softly, "Once, I thought love meant choosing sides. But I learned that true love never asks you to hurt another. It asks you to grow kinder, even when your heart is torn." The children listened in silence, their eyes wide, as petals drifted down like memories from the past. When the wind grew gentle, he would close his eyes and say, "My mother's love was the light that guided me back from darkness. Without her, I would have become a man without a soul." Sometimes, the villagers passing by would pause to listen. Many had heard his story before, but it never lost its power. It reminded them that even the gravest mistake can lead to wisdom, if the heart chooses humility. As the sun disappeared behind the hills, Taro whispered to himself, "I almost lost everything, but love found me first." His story became a timeless truth whispered from one generation to another, that real love does not demand, it gives; it does not destroy, it forgives. And so, under the fading light of the mountain, Taro's legacy lived on. Not in wealth, not in fame, but in the kindness he left behind. Would you choose love that demands sacrifice, or love that forgives without condition? If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more emotional English stories.